There's all these fantastic business events, and when you're running your own business, you don't go to most of them because you're so busy. And then suddenly I found around that time going to these things was um, incredibly valuable.
There's no better feeling than that moment when the Q&A is done and you walk off the stage and you ride this high. I play rugby, and I equate it to that last whistle at the end of a rugby game. It's just like, whew, we got through it. We're great. This is awesome. And that high you can ride for days.
So I find that I'm just one of those people for whom challenge is some kind of core value, because the alternative of boredom, for my brain, is much more dangerous.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Drop the mic with Jason Hunt.
All right, Josh, welcome to the show.
Hello, Jason.
Yeah,
Happy to be here.
Good to see you again. First time I met you was at the FBA, the Food and Beverage Conference in Moncton, and then again at Social Next. We keep crossing paths, ongoingly here in 2026. And let's talk about 2026 right now, and what you're doing right now today, and how we keep crossing paths.
I'm mostly in it for the conference coffee. I don't know what it is. I love airports, I love hotels, and I love conferences. I realize that makes me one of the lamer people in business, but there's something about those things that I just love. We met at FBA, that was Moncton 2022, so that's Food and Beverage Atlantic for anyone listening. There's all these fantastic business events, and when you're running your own business, you don't go to most of them because you're so busy. And then suddenly I found around that time going to these things was incredibly valuable. Emotionally, you could vent to fellow food and beverage operators or entrepreneurs. By talking openly about the problems you're having, you often find other people who have solutions. And then just sort of stumbled into speaking at them, which
Did it start with the speaking, or did it start with the hosting? Because the two shows that I saw you at, you were hosting, not speaking.
Right. It started with speaking. And it really started with my parents were murder mystery dinner theater owners in Ottawa. So not only small business owners, but also kind of an alternative lifestyle, quite different from most of my buddies, folks who had government gigs. And I started doing the public speaking thing in grade 6. And my speech was on how cool I thought my parents were. It's a funny topic, and I made it to the finals with that, and I think I really fell in love with speaking. MCing came later out of desperation. There was an MC that bailed on an event 72 hours before the event. They gave me a call for some reason. I stepped in, and I thought it was equally fun, very different experience, but a lot more improvisation when you're basically just responding to what's happening in the room, whether it's a power outage or whether it's somebody with a hard-hitting question. So it keeps you on your toes.
Speaking, they say it's not really for everyone. I think most speakers that are actually comfortable with speaking and not being forced into that role have some sort of a background story which gave them that confidence to speak in front of others. Like for myself, I'm more confident speaking in front of an audience of 200 than I am in front of an audience of 4 people.
Right. Often the case, I'm sometimes scared to speak in front of my own employees.
Mm-hmm.
But put me in a room of 800 people, and within a few minutes on stage, I feel right at home. It's very, very bizarre to have that as one of your kind of attributes.
It's funny because even now I've spoken over 100 times and sung on stages and stuff, and I still to this day I still get super nervous before speaking. So much so that the night before I'm typically battling trying to get to sleep because the wheels keep spinning. And so it leads right up to that point of getting on stage. And I don't want to talk to anybody an hour before I'm on stage. I just want to sit in my silo and leave me alone and let me do let me get my mind right. But the minute I get up there, it's all good. The lights are on you, the mic's in your face, and it's like showtime. and it
Yep.
all goes away.
Absolutely.
You still get the jitters?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those things where, just like anything risky in life, it's a combination of excited and nervousness. It's like,
Here's the problem with most local marketing. You're either paying for ads that stop the moment you stop spending, or you're waiting 6 to 12 months for SEO to kick in. But what if you didn't have to choose? At Merged Media, we build what we call the three-headed monster. Local SEO, Google Ads, and paid social media are working together. SEO builds your foundation and long-term rankings. Paid ads put you in front of people searching right now, and together you are unavoidable. If you're tired of paying for marketing you can't measure, we would love to show you what we see in your market. Book a free strategy call over at merged.ca. That's merged.ca.
should I ride that roller coaster? And you're going up the hill and you're second guessing, and then you just hit that first vertical and you're cruising. It's awesome.
And there's no better feeling than that moment when the Q&A is done, and you walk off the stage and you ride this high. I play rugby, and I equate it to that last whistle at the end of a rugby game. It's just like, whew, I got through it. We're great. This is awesome. And that high you can ride for days.
Yeah, it really does sort of have that post competition feel to it. Finishing a game, or I'll watch the young chefs on Hell's Kitchen finish a head to head in the final round, and when they finish, they're just drinking a glass of champagne and going like, "Holy shit! It's in the hands of the judges now. I did everything I could. I threw everything at it. Whether they like it or not, we'll see. But I can't control that. I've done my part, and you're riding this insane post roller coaster high." But I also love the Q&A. The Q&A actually might be my favorite part, where the audience now has sort of a comfort level with you, and they get to throw curveballs your way, and you got to think on your feet.
Yeah, that's a good one there too. I mean, sometimes you do get some. Do you ever get the questions that really kind of stump you? Have you been in that situation before? You've been stumped on stage?
Yeah, big time. There was one where, first of all, I got the memory of a goldfish, so I often have pregnant pauses, a lot of ums and ahs, and I stood there for what I knew was an unreasonable amount of time, not responding and just thinking. And that's okay, because I like making the audience. I'm pretty much a perpetually uncomfortable human in life, so I like making them a fraction of what I'm feeling, and kind of leaving them with a lingering silence. But I really thought about it, because it did stump me. But I also find there's something about, maybe it's adrenaline. I think clearer when somebody asks me a question in front of a big crowd. I'm much more incisive, versus you ask me a question right now about what have you done to grow your business this year, or what are your political views, or whatever. I'm gonna, oh boy, what a loaded question. I don't know where to start with that. Where, does he want me to go this direction or that direction? I hum and haw. And, when I know there's an audience and they're expecting bang for their entertainment buck and for their informational buck, you just kind of, something in me just clicks, and I just start verbalizing everything.
There's something to say the power of that pause when you're on stage, and it right now, to this point now, it comes really natural to me and you as well, where you don't need to fill that gap with ums and ahs, but it is such a power to having that silence and you holding the conch, knowing that nobody's going to interrupt you. Nobody's interrupting you. You could just do as you wish and really kind of sort of be theatrical about it. I like to look at even a presentation as almost kind of like a bit of a stand-up, or you know what I mean? That's the approach to it is very much kind of like it is an art, I find, and it's not just regurgitating a PowerPoint presentation.
Totally. It's funny you mentioned the conch. Just last night, I stumbled upon. I'll go down a YouTube funnel when I'm bored, and Lord of the Flies, the original film, popped on my feed, and there was Piggy's death scene.
Oh yeah.
And he's literally holding the conch. He's trying to bring some order to this chaos of this island of boys who have invented their own horrifying society. And right on cue, as he's speaking, I can't remember the kid's name, Simon maybe, pushes the boulder off the cliff and crushes poor Piggy. And at that moment, I went, that's kind of like public speaking. I'm Piggy holding the conch. There's 600 people in here. I'm trying to bring order to it, by holding this thing, symbolizing it's my turn to speak. And then somebody from the audience just belts one out and throws a boulder off the cliff, and you go, holy shit, I was not expecting that question. Oh man, did they research me before I got on stage?
Sometimes it's a lot of stones and pebbles, but once in a while you get that boulder that just crushes you.
Oh, it just crushes, and it really puts you on your toes. And there's a level of bravery on that audience member's part to do that. You don't see it often. You see it more in comedy clubs, where the relationship that the comedian, who are the best storytellers, the relationship they build with the audience becomes so trusting that they feel like they're having a one-on-one conversation. And maybe they have a drink in them or whatever, and then suddenly they just go, I don't agree with that. I can't remember. I can't imagine how much more exciting and horrifying keynote speaking would be if there was that lack of decorum that you get in a comedy club. But sometimes it's quite fun.
I try to because I moderate panels as well. I'm sure you've moderated some panels in the past. And when it comes to moderating panels, that does give you that opportunity. And that's what people want. People in the audience, they want a bit of controversy. They want to see a bit of arguing. And I think as a panel or moderator of a panel, that's a huge opportunity to create that source of entertainment. So heads up for all moderators out there, more controversy. We want more debating, more arguing.
Totally. I've moderated maybe 4 or 3 or 2 panels. I can't remember in the last year. And in almost all of them, they give you a pre-approved script of questions to ask. And, the panels they're never like the 9 a.m. when people are nicely caffeinated. They're always just before happy hour, like 3 p.m. People are mentally dead. And you're looking out at the audience, half of them are networking outside, or they snuck off for a nap or snuck out for a beer. And you're like sitting there in these comfy chairs that they put on stage with these people who often aren't comfortable on stage. And so they practice and rehearse their questions. And so finally they're feeling confident because they start to speak and whatever. And their comfort level makes the audience bored.
Yep.
And I always, the last panel I moderated, I hopped off stage and I said, sorry, panel, I'm going right to the audience. I've got a bunch of pre-approved questions here, but these folks paid to be here. Let's hear what they have to say. And that, you could see the terror in a couple of the panelists' face, like, what is he doing? He's not going according to script. And I'm like, I'm watching the audience fall asleep here, so we need to be on our toes a bit for some hard-hitting questions.
100%. I've been in that same situation before. A lot of times it's with some sort of a business or industry that's high compliance, and they're the ones that are usually up there with an agenda, and they can't go off the script. But I love that little tactic to just take it to the audience. Let's get a couple moles out there and a couple seed questions and hit them up and throw it out there to stir it up a bit. I love that. Like Josh, we went down this rabbit hole for a bit, but let's get to a bit about you and how you started out, because it is unique. It is unconventional, your journey towards entrepreneurship. You started out as an engineer.
Yeah. I wanted to build rides at Disney World. And I went to the high school counselor and I said, I want to be an Imagineer, which is what Disney calls their people who make dreams into reality. And they said, well, you probably need to be an engineer, which was not true. And that was, a lot of discrete algebra and calculus and physics, and did 4 years of that at university, realized I really don't like this, but I'm this deep in, I'm this much in student debt. I better get across the finish line. And all the silver hairs kept telling me, just get your degree and it gets better from there. And then I got my degree, and nobody in my family, like I said, dad's an actor / dinner theater owner. Mom supported him and drove the bus and was worked at a Montessori, and she had like 5 or 6 jobs at any given time. So I didn't have any engineers or, kind of corporate people in my family. I didn't have any connections, and I didn't know where to go from there. And I saw all my buddies just sort of like they had the plan already. And they just walked into the white collar world. And I went, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like this degree didn't prep me for anything. To be fair, I didn't spend a lot of time taking that degree very seriously towards the end, but I ended up stumbling into a master's because I didn't know what else to do. So I had 2 more years of hard shit. And then, 3 years in corporate, I realized, no, okay, I've really given this a fair shake. This is not for me. What I really liked about Disney was them bringing people together and creating memories. It wasn't actually the rides. What I really liked was the camaraderie. And me and my two co-founders, Angus and Doug, my two drinking buddies from college, basically created the business that is the ultimate camaraderie facilitator, which is hospitality and beverage.
And hospitality and beverage, and that would be Good Robot Brewing, right?
Yeah.
And
Good Robot Brewing.
So tell me about the inception of Good Robot Brewing, because just to come out and have an idea to start a brewery is quite quite a tall order. A lot goes into that. A lot of people dream about that kind of an initiative without the execution.
Yeah, big time. And keep it a dream. Like if you if you really love making beer or going to a bar with your buddies, keep that as your hobby. You really got to love business and entrepreneurship to make it in any of these games. But it wasn't my idea. It was Angus's idea. If there's three founders in order, I would be founder number three. And Angus had the idea. As soon as he floated it, he wasn't even inviting me, but as soon as he mentioned that he and Doug were considering moving to Halifax and opening a brewery, I quit my job in Seattle, flew to Calgary to live with Angus to write the business plan, help write the business plan, flew to Halifax from there, and then just started moving.
And why, well, first of all, why Halifax?
Angus's idea, he's from Cape Breton. Doug and I are from rural town south of Ottawa. He saw Halifax as an untapped market. He had worked in Halifax a couple of years as an engineer. He was in the oil fields of Alberta at the time. I don't know if you've ever seen Nova Scotians outside of Nova Scotia. It's very sad. They are fish out of water. They need to be home. So he sold us on the idea that this was a great market for it. And while I think it's a very rough market to do business in, it's a wonderful place to live.
I spent my university years, I went to St. Mary's in Halifax there, so can totally understand it. I'm trying to recall as you say that, how many Nova Scotians I've actually bumped into outside of Nova Scotia, and there's not that many. So I know Nova Scotians as they are in Nova Scotia, and me as an upper Canadian living in Nova Scotia and what that's
Right.
like. But that was a big problem, at least at the time when I was going to university in Halifax, is that Halifax would manufacture a lot of talent through the universities, but they would never stick. They'd always leave to go to other places. But going into a market like that, because obviously there's your business partner Angus from Cape Breton had some sort of attachment to there. But you're right, it is a very risky play to start a business in Nova Scotia when you're living there in Alberta, one of the most prosperous provinces in Canada, and saying, hey, let's pick up and just go to Nova Scotia to start this business. So that's probably that's a massive risk. Now you move the business, you start it in Nova Scotia. What are those first few months like as you're trying to get that business off the ground?
So right now I'm reporting from our old residence. We lived above the brewery for its first 4 years of operation, me and the founder. So this is actually our old living room that we turned, 4 years later, we turned it into a bar. So we literally, people talk about, I lived at my business, I slept on the floors. We literally lived at the business. The moment we touched down off the flight, Doug picked me up from the airport, and I got to the facility that would become our first location, our first tap room, our first beer garden, our first bar/restaurant, our first brewery and store. And I was in Alberta for the 2 years before that, and Seattle and New York the 2 years before that, all of which are very industrious, hardworking markets. Tech in Seattle, money in New York, and of course, energy in Alberta. And I remember being shocked my first day here when the painters showed up 3 hours late, took a smoke break immediately, and then asked if they'd be getting tipped. And I remember going, well, these two guys are just, they're goons. But that ended up being a reality of the market of um, this is not a hustle market, and it is hard to find people who are willing to grind. So on the one hand, it's a have-not economy already, and on the other, it's also a market that doesn't push as hard as, let's say, a Calgarian might, with respect to putting in the hours. I mean, Calgary was just like, you started it. If you got an email I used to say, if you got an email at 11 p.m. on a project, you were responding to it.
Maybe there's something about the ocean air. They say island time, right? Something about the ocean air that just does something to your system to make you just think there's more important things in life than work.
Oh yeah, and obviously there's pros and cons to everything. I'm not shitting on it. I think there's obviously much more to life than work. But for an entrepreneur who needed to find other hustlers to help scale something, who did want to push, this is a very challenging market to do that in.
Okay, so at what point of Good Robot did you say that, okay, hold on a second here? Well, first of all, was there a point where you said, hey, maybe we should throw in the towel here and give up? And when was that point, and how did that journey go when you pushed past that point?
Yeah, that point was 11:33 a.m. today, 9:15 a.m., 7:47 p.m. last night, 6:33, 5 p.m. yesterday. I mean, you were constant. I don't want to say you, I don't want to assume for other folks, but I am constantly battling with multiple sides of my brain and personality over, oh, come on, I got this. I mean, I literally have a list of affirmations. It's super dorky, but I have a list of affirmations I read in the morning or write down. And they include things like, I've got this. And they include things like, I am figuring it out. And just, sort of present tense language that says, this is just another problem and you got to fix it. When you have kind of a waterway of problems and, a tap that opens them, and, sometimes that tap turns into a fire hose and you're just constantly problem. And every time you fix the problem, there's a new one. It can be extremely draining. And if you don't have a life, the other aspects of your life in some kind of order, they also add to the general stress. So entrepreneurship can be, no salary for multiple years, which then causes the financial hardship. No time, which means maybe you're not getting to the gym as much, or you're eating poorly because it's convenient, and it just spills over and spills over and spills over. So it truly is a weekly, if not daily, exercise of, you've got this is fine, and whatever. And there was a point in 2023 when I did reevaluate my role within the company. I moved to Ottawa for a bit. My family was having some troubles, and I took some breathing room to figure out what role I wanted to play, and does it make sense for me to be a part of this at this stage, and I tried the alternative for a little bit of something lower stress without managing employees and so on and so forth. So my stress levels went down, but my boredom went up tremendously. And I found I actually measured my happiness at that time. I'd give myself every day, I had a Dailyo app tracker that tracked your mood. And my numeric mood during that period was lower than it was in the extremely stressful period leading up to it. So I find that I'm just one of those people for whom challenge is some kind of core value, because the alternative of boredom, for my brain, is much more dangerous.
Interesting. It sounds to me like it's almost like it is like a journey. It's a ship you're on, and you can jump off that ship at any time, and that ship will just keep sailing, or maybe it'll sink. but
Yeah.
it is a journey, and some people are not cut out for this entrepreneurial journey. Some people just want to get to that destination, and that's it. My wife is that type of person. She just like, and it's true in life too. I love taking the scenic route to places I go to. She just wants to
Right.
get there. But when it comes to entrepreneurship and business and life, I do prefer the scenic route, and I do love the journey aspect of getting to that unknown destination where you think you're going, but it might not be the place where you land. Like
Yeah.
it's something about that makes it so interesting and suspenseful and fun at the same time, and the characters you meet along the way, right? So, and I was fortunate for myself, at least, to meet my business partner back in 2019, and it's been fantastic. I've had some terrible partnerships and had some really good ones. How important is it for you to have the right partner? Have you had a lot of partners throughout your days of entrepreneurship, or has it been the core three?
The core three throughout Good Robot, historically. Now there's obviously different investors, there's different lenders and banks, there's different customers and clients, there's different employees. You know, depending on the season, we've got 50 to 85 employees now. So you're surrounded by different people all the time. But in terms of foundership that are still in director or executive or whatever fancy word you want to use, roles, the original three are still there. We're just supplemented by a growing team of passionate people.
Very good. Now, going back to, because back in the day when you started Good Robot, you weren't really leveraging paid advertising or SEO or investing into marketing programs to get it off the ground. Was it just word of mouth? Were you embedding yourself within the community? How did you get it off the ground to a point where you're like, yeah, okay, this is working. This is things are moving.
Oh, interesting. Frame that a little different for me.
So let's talk about the specific marketing aspect of launching the business, or when you were moving the business along,
Right.
you saw the most success in.
Yeah. So in the early days, I am a marketer's dream. I am super impulsive. I like everything bad for you, from booze to cigarettes to chocolate, donuts, you know, stressful situations that get your blood pressure up. I love horror movies and roller coasters and so on and so forth. And I love those, you know, dopamine hits that come with it. It's super fun. In the early days of entrepreneurship, where things were happening so fast, the finish line was a very clearly defined project of get the place built and then it opens. And entrepreneurs love checkbox projects like that. You build it and it's done. Okay, here's opening day, and now we have a store and a brewery, and we're making beer, and it's going to these restaurants and bars, and we're working at the shop. Oh, and now we have to run this thing. And running a business is very different than opening a business. Day-to-day operations are not the strength of most entrepreneurs I know. Early on, there was a lot of quick hit stuff because so much of our competition, so many of our fellow people who were opening breweries and whatnot, I really put ourselves out there, and I showed the behind the scenes of what it's like to own and operate and open a business, and showed all the nightmare situations day to day. And I did it in a blog post, and in retrospect, a lot of it was kind of horrifying, a lot of it very unprofessional, but it was very raw and very authentic. And so, you know, when opening day finally came, we had this line out the door for it. And people were telling us, we've never seen such hype for a brewery opening in this province. And at that time, the marketing was very, quote unquote, easy because you could see the results so quickly. It was very much like performance marketing. We were weeks away from insolvency when we opened our tap room. It went way over budget, way over time. And then it opened in January, the shittiest month of the year to open a hospitality business, especially a beer one. And a single Facebook post about a silent reading event led to so much media coverage. And then our next thing you know, our tap room's at capacity with 72 hours notice. So you could see very quickly the impact of all the little things that you were doing. Customers, you know, when you're working retail or working the bar and you're running the media, you're talking to the customers who came in because they saw that post you did, or they saw that article about you, or whatever it is. So it was very gratifying to be kind of the start and end of the funnel. Over time, even though we've scaled from zero to $10 million as a business, a lot of those core marketing pieces still work very well, and you have to actually reteach yourself that a version of what I did early on is still very effective. Publicity is my favorite marketing. It's free, and it's other people talking about how good you are rather than you trying to convince people your product's good. A lot of that stuff, authenticity, like founder-led marketing, being in the videos, in the photos, turns out really important to customers. I've had multiple conversations this week with customers who were like, "Oh, that video was great." Brought our friends in for the first time because we saw it, and we've had complaints when founders aren't here, and so I feel like a lot of those core market pieces haven't changed. What has changed is as you scale, you have to scale your revenues accordingly, and when you self-learn everything, there's a limit to how much you could take on. So SEO, all that tactical stuff, those were all almost like gatekeeping terms that when you don't do a traditional marketing degree, or you get trained by an agency or work within a company that has a certain size and sophistication, you learn those things. We didn't know what those things were. We didn't even know how to search for those things because we didn't know they were a thing. So learning by fire has its limits. And I think where we're at today is the ability to recognize what you suck at is critically important when determining what kind of marketing you're doing.
100%. I think that's brilliant. Understanding exactly what you suck at and empowering those people that are professionals that know what they're doing and have the experience to do that work. But you brought up a good point too. You also need to do your due diligence too, because you don't know what you don't know. So it's a lot, and we hear that a lot in the front lines of being a marketing agency. It's like every new business that comes in our door, or every business that comes in our door as a lead, has worked with 3 or 4 or 5 other agencies in the past that they've been burnt by because they were in that situation of just like, oh, let's just Google SEO companies. Okay, you sound good, cheap price, let's get it, and then you get burned. And unfortunately, that's what's changed in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, to drum up new business, it was very easy because people were trying social media for the first time, trying some paid advertising. So it's very easy to drum up business. Not as easy today, and there's a lot more emphasis on the trust building aspect as well, as there is in your business. Like you said, people come there and they're disappointed the founders aren't there because they trust you guys. They want to do business with you guys. They want to see you guys there. So when it comes to because we have a lot of small businesses that listen to this podcast that are looking for ways to grow that business, and for you, Josh, one of the biggest ones was those viral PR moments. Right? Yeah. How does a small business come about those opportunities, or seek out those opportunities, or find those opportunities? Or do they just kind of come beneath your nose and it's like, hey, there's a good opportunity, or is it actually thought out and thought through?
Historically, given my impulsive nature, there wasn't a lot of thinking through, but there's a few ways. Standing out in a crowded market is doing the thing that hasn't been tried because everyone's afraid to do it. One of the easiest ways to do that is research. You can have a Me Too idea. If you are a barbershop, hop on Instagram and see what the barbershop with the largest following in Spokane, Washington is doing. That's making them stand out. So that's one way to go about it, is research. And in the case of silent reading, that was an event that I had seen work in Seattle where I lived and got crazy publicity. And I thought, well, we just need to bring that to Halifax because there's a market of introverts who love to drink beer but don't necessarily love to go to bars. Part of what makes stories stand out and distinctive is zigging where your competition zags. And the old adage, I can't remember how old it is now, but I think it goes back to the founding of New York Times of it's not a good story when a dog bites a man, but it's a great story when a man bites a dog. Taking something and flipping it on its head. So at the time in Halifax, you've got all these bars and they've all got live music. Those goes to the heavy music market, known as a drinking market, loud, rowdy, etc. And you're going, I know there's got to be some other people out there like me who don't love the dude with the acoustic guitar blasting shit at them while you're trying to like drink beer with your buddies and tell jokes. And there's probably a lot of people who just want silence, but they enjoy being around people. And that's an example of like the idea was so kind of crazy that nobody had thought to try it. And it was an idea that for the next 5 years was 5% of our website traffic, and kind of became ours to own. So that's one way is zigging where others zag. You can do that through research. You can do that by talking about it. A lot of the creative process just comes down to, I got a problem. I'm going to talk with customers, talk with family, talk with whomever, and work through ideas. Creativity is never a party of one thing. And just look at what's happening in the market. If every single landscaping company is advertising in the newspaper, then maybe you look at a different channel. If every single one of them, if every single coffee shop has a punch card model and you get the 10th one free, maybe you need to do something where instead of a punch card, it's your first one as a new customer is free. And then you pay for the next 10. Just trying to figure out, here's what's happening in my category, and what is the opposite of that thing that might be a talkable idea. And once if you can bring it to the press, that would be the next level of sophistication is getting traditional media to cover it, because they've got very good trust authority. And so those things, when people read about you, research about you with AI or with search engines, those are the kind of sources that it pulls from to tell a complete story of your brand.
That's I love that approach, just inverting it and thinking outside of the box to come up with a fresh idea, because you do see that. You do see the endless landscapers in the local newspaper, and it's like, which one do you pick, right? It's like, I always say, like, if you're going to do that, don't put all your eggs in that one basket, right? Get that kind of omni-channel approach, get the visibility in multiple places. We had a post, actually, I posted on LinkedIn the other day. I was going through our DMs for our agency Merged Media, and the mayor of Guelph, Ontario hit us up. And he's like, hey, and he took a picture of my window here. In the next office here, I put up a roll-up banner in the window. And I have a meta ad of me walking down the street talking about, here's my office up there, pointing up there. And the mayor took a picture of our office with my Merge Media banner in it and sent it to us DM and said, hey, just want to say you guys are doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing, which is just super cool. But it was that omni-channel approach. It's not just the banner in the window. It's the meta ad that he saw. It's maybe the blog post, or being in the Wellington Advisor newspaper, doing some charitable work. Whatever it is, it's just getting out in front of the audience as many times as possible to get those trust signals that we talked about earlier on, which I think is key.
Yeah, totally. I mean, at the time, another talkable thing we did was, and another example of flipping something on its head or zigging where they zag, every craft brewery and their mother was shitting on corn as an ingredient. They talked about, this is what the big corporate breweries, the multinationals do. And we were like, oh, I don't know if we want to be associated with that, because I still love a Coors Banquet or a Miller High Life. I got no problem with them.
Yeah.
And so we deliberately made a corn beer that became an award-winning beer, and called it corn beer, and made an advertisement, not an advertisement. We didn't know how to advertise, but we just made a video of people drinking this extremely sessionable, extremely crushable, easy to drink beer, which also didn't really exist in the market at the time. And the whole concept of the video was that the lack of craft breweries using corn as an ingredient was creating a hole in the corn market, a corn hole. And that was affecting the economy negatively. So if you drank Good Robots corn beer, you could fill that corn hole. You could crush that corn hole. And it was just a running gag of people saying, crush that cornhole over and over. And we had customers for months and years coming into this place, people who had never tried craft beer before, who thought it was too serious. Maybe they thought it was too, whatever it was, too weird, coming in and being like, I want a cornhole. Right? And it was just doing something that was the opposite of what every other person was doing. And it garnered a lot of talkability and traction for that reason.
Good segue to one of my final questions here, and that's, the thing that everybody's using now, everybody's doing now, and that's leveraging AI in their workflows, in their business. How are you, Josh, leveraging AI in your everyday workflows, or are you using it at all?
I always love, this is one of those, marketers are early adopters of things like this. And an example of where you could turn this on your head is if you want to be the business that actually pays designers, for example, you could turn your entire Instagram feed into nothing but pictures of handwritten notes. If everybody's zagging, you zig. With respect to AI, we've got a very creative company, and we don't want to take away the joy and also the benefits of creation. But a lot of the stuff they used to hand out drugs for, the menial tasks of life, a lot of administrative work, is really where I try to optimize workflows with AI. So one thing my creative team lead hates doing is the compliance check on our cans to make sure that they stand up to CFIA rules. So we create a little thread where this person is now the CFIA expert, and we run all our artwork through it to make sure that the French translation is correct, the ingredients are in the right order, all the stuff that CFIA requires before they thumbs up your product. So we use it for a lot of the work that we didn't like doing anyway. And I also use it creatively, not to create, but to get out of writer's block. When we have a boatload of information about a new product we made, and we just did this week. I got one right here. This is a new ultralight IPA we made, and this is a 4%, 100-calorie IPA. It just won a gold at the Canada Beer Cup. It won a silver at a regional beer event recently. This product is for people like me, IPA drinkers, but who have shit to do tomorrow. And we only discovered that messaging through talking to customers at the bar. So we take those customer conversations, we take sales data from our stores that we sell out of, we take POS, point of sale data from our bars that we sell it at. We take everything we possibly know about this product, consumer sentiments online, and say, we think we're thinking about this messaging angle, acting as April Dunford or another product positioning expert. What do you really think is the message that we got to put out there to overcome the barrier to trial with this product? Here's what we think it is. Oh, and by the way, please push back. And it can be very clarifying when you have vast amounts of information to have basically somebody who is neutral to your organization, I'm talking like it's human, but something that is neutral to your organization, look at all the consumer sentiments, look at the sales data, everything, and not go with a gut feeling, but just offer an alternative. And even if you don't accept it, that's okay. It's just a different way of thinking.
I love that. I love how you're also leveraging it in a way where you're using it as a strategic partner, not just a tool to give you some output, right? It's like You're asking it to ask you questions as well to gain that knowledge and additional knowledge to be able to give you a personalized and unique output, which I think a lot of business owners don't see the opportunity there, right? It's just like, let's give me some ideas or around a label for my product, and here's my product, and here's who we serve. It's like, okay, how does that make you unique, right?
Totally. I use it daily for if I'm stuck on something, I might just start blabbing to it. Especially, I got if for all y'all listening at home and haven't figured it out, I got ADHD. And have a hard time staying on task. And sometimes my brain, today's one of those days, is just overloaded with insanity and diarrhea and all kinds of craziness. And sometimes I just need to talk and talk and talk to get to the thing that I'm actually trying to solve. And it's fabulous for that. It's great at taking vast amounts of data and sifting through it very quickly So I will use it when I just can't get to the point.
I love it.
I could use it right now.
Love it. Awesome.
I forgot the question you asked.
No, it's all good, Josh. This conversation has been awesome. We could probably go on for another half an hour, but I got to tie it up here. And if our audience has any questions for you, Josh, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
I'm one of those LinkedIn lunatics, a total dork in that way. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I do read nearly all my DMs. So feel free. Joshua Council. Somebody messed up at Ellis Island. It's spelled wrong. Counsil, not like a city council. Find me on there, and I'd be happy to connect.
Awesome, Josh. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jason. We'll see you at the next conference.
Hey, thank you, podcast listener, for checking out that episode of Drop the Mic. If you liked that episode, I would love it if you went on over to your podcast platform and left us a 5-star review. And if you don't want to miss an upcoming episode of Drop the Mic, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks again. See you soon.